Yo.
Here I is.
Here I be.
Here I is.
Why you so loud, man?
I know you missed me. Here I is.
We miss Pastor Jeff. Pastor Jeff has risen from the grave. He's come from his bed of affliction.
Hey, glory.
Is that what we call it? He's come.
Hey, glory.
He is lifted off of his bed of affliction. The prayers of the
Lazarus,
righteous
come forth.
Prayers of the righteous avail as much. I went and laid hands on him, dumped some olive oil.
And that's why you got COVID now. I did not have COVID. Let's make that clear.
Pastor Jeff, so is that going to be the new thing now that every time somebody gets sick, they're going to have to clarify and qualify that it's not COVID? Hey, is that going to be the thing?
I tell you what, I was at dinner today and I coughed and I just wanted to look around like, I wonder if people think I got COVID.
You're paranoid. Coughing has now become like one of the worst things you can do in public.
Absolutely.
It's surpassed passing gas. People would rather you. I bet you any money. People would rather you pass gas than cough in their presence at this point.
Somebody said, if, and I'm excuse my language. Somebody said, if a fart go through your underwear, your jeans, and make it out, COVID can get through that little mask. COVID can get through that little. So
this is the depth of Pastor Jeff's theology.
that came straight from Christianity 101.
It came straight from seminary school. So tell us, man. Tell us about your experience.
Man, we do need to talk about it, man.
Let's talk about it.
Just real quick. Thank you all for the prayers of the righteous, the fervent prayers of the righteous. Todd came up to the hospital. Man, you all right, man? All right?
I came in there, man. I was crying. Let me see him. I want to see him. We demand to see Brother Johnson. We demand to see Brother Johnson.
But on a real note, I had been having headaches all day. Took a lot of medicine. Wasn't going away. I kept on laying down, and my mother-in-law happened to be over my house, and she's like, you need to go get your blood pressure checked. And us as black people, us as black men, was like, no, I'm good. I'm going to be straight. I mean, she was very demanding. And if you know my mother-in-law, she can be demanding to the point where, she almost get on your nerves.
Oh, we know.
But she made sure that I went to the hospital or went and got my blood pressure checked. And when I got it checked, I was 195 over 116, which is
and that's not good.
It's off the charts. And so once I'd done that, I still was like, well, I'll be good. I'm just gonna lay it down for tomorrow. And she was demanding once again that I went to the hospital. And so once I got to the hospital, it's like, oh, we got to get this down. We can't let it go. We can't let you leave till we get it down. So I guess my question is, why are we as black men, especially in particular African Americans, we just don't want to go to the hospital?
I can speak for myself. I want to hear from some of our viewers who are tapping in. But first of all, we just have this sense of privacy and pride.
Yeah,
we definitely have privacy and pride. And you are going to invade our privacy, and you're probably going to violate our pride, puncture our pride a little bit. The privacy part, obviously, men don't like to be touched on. And it's funny because as much as all men be, I don't care if it's, fantasizing about women, this, that, the other, or whatever, and, joking about their bodies. When it comes down to actually being touched, male or female, they're not down with it.
Yeah.
They're not down with it no matter what. And then the pride part is, I think we just want to avoid the bad news. We don't want to hear that something's wrong.
Because I have great insurance.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the money or hospital. You just don't want to hear bad news.
Right.
And I think we need to get over that, because I think it's better to hear the bad news and repair it than to not hear it and to end up somewhere in a casket. So.
Oh yeah. But I mean, for some reason, that just makes more sense. I don't know if it makes more sense to people, but we've been willing to accept it as a reality.
Yeah.
Now, since you said that, I don't know if it was Twitter or Facebook, but I saw a really pertinent post that kind of poked at me because I'll be 40 this year. And that was, if black men have a shorter lifespan than white men, then why do they recommend checkups at the same ages, which is normally around 50.
50, yep.
So you need to be knocking that down. If Black men are prone to certain diseases, Black people
That's
are prone to certain
good.
things, why not knock that down to like 40, 35 even, instead
Absolutely.
of 50? Because obviously a lot of the issues are, like you said, most of us have not been going to the doctor up until age 50 and sometimes beyond until we decide to finally get checked. And there might have been things going on that our younger, healthier bodies might be able to handle in treatments and all that we wouldn't be able to handle once it's advanced, has been in us for a long time. Plus we're 55, 60, 65 years old.
Absolutely.
And to be 65 and 70 in a Black man is to be near death, to be honest.
Hey, Pastor Harrison would always say, President Harrison would always say, I got more behind me than I got in front of me.
Oh, yeah.
And, I did make a follow-up appointment. I go to the doctor tomorrow, see my doctor, Frida Capers. And, but I think we just have to do better. And I think we have to demand, even if they don't, because
we have to demand that the screening.
I think last year she told me, you ain't got to worry about
get that finger out. I demand this.
She told me, don't worry about prostate until you're 50. And I think you have to say, nah, I'd rather go ahead and get it.
And I'm saying, and of course I'm not looking for it. I've had a check done, but I definitely think for Black men that should be 40. I just do. I just think for Black men, prostate checks and some other pertinent checks, even blood pressure checks. To be Black is to live in a stressful environment, period. We live under, we don't like to admit it. And I'm not trying to be all, because I do feel like sometimes there's this little bit of mental like overkill, like where people are imposing stress on you, like everything is a traumatic experience. But bro, we've been Black, me going on 40 years, you 40 some years.
Absolutely.
It's
and let's just be honest.
Stressful.
Let's just be honest. Being Black and a pastor,
Whoa.
Because you don't want your congregation to think.
Kill me now. Can I be honest? And I always have to qualify my statements so nobody thinks that Pastor Todd is searching the pool or anything. But to be a Black man, a Black pastor, and have any sort of potential health issue, especially if you're a little younger, is a liability to your career.
It is.
And you don't like to use the word career, calling, whatever you want to call it. I'm just being blunt. Is that if you think there might be any opportunity beyond, or people might think, even your members, let's not even talk about another church. Let's not talk about, I want to be called to a bigger church, nothing like that. Your members will think less of you if they think you're weaker. They might have sympathy to a degree for you, and maybe feel like you're the soldier trudging through every Sunday. But truth be told, they waiting on you to preach your last sermon and keel over so they can say you died a hero. He died on the battlefield.
Yeah, you are absolutely right.
No, you fed me all that fried chicken after every service. You fed me all that fried chicken after every service. After I preached my blood pressure high, then you gave me a big pound of salt to eat. But yeah, I mean, weakness is a liability for Black men in a lot of occupations. Yeah. Especially social, occupations. So what I would say, and I'm saying to myself, I need to do better with my health.
We need to do better.
We need to get checked more. Even if I'm not going to really stop drinking pop or this, that, or the other, I could at least get checked and know what it's doing to me. I'm trying to drink this water, but the juice is going to come out. So, I mean, at least it's not a Pepsi.
I got
this
water.
time.
Y'all know I'll never have water on
this. Not a Pepsi this time. If any of our men are okay, Glenn says, put that up before we jump off of this. Our good friend, Minister Robinson, says, doctors have said now that Black men should get checked at 45. I'm with you. I'm going to just go ahead and do it. And again, I mean, we knew people like Dr. King was under great amounts of stress. I'm the same age he was when he passed, when he was murdered. But they said he had the heart of like a 70-year-old man.
Wow.
Now, we know that there was additional stress from the movement and all that, but there are certain occupations that weigh on you more. President, I'm sure y'all saw poor Barack, our man B.
He aged 20 years.
He came in jump roping and stuff, and he crawled basketballs. He crawled out the White House.
They took him out on a stretcher. He was on Air Force One in a wheelchair.
Yeah, so Take care of yourself. We're grateful Pastor Jeff is okay. And he already knows what it is. He knows if there's anything wrong, I'm coming running. That's just how we roll, man.
That's how we roll.
I started a prayer meeting up in that ER. I said, get out the way. Get out the way. I got the oil.
Mark, you know you older than 40. Stop.
Mark, you at least 48 now.
Oh, Mr. Raines.
Oh, Raines. Oh, Raines. Look like an old deacon singing Pass Me Not. You look like it in your picture. You're like you one of them old deacons that dyed your beard.
I'm approaching 40.
Yeah, I'm approaching
40 30 years ago.
You like the Morgan Freeman of church guys. You've been old all your life.
Oh my God.
And by the way, speaking of which, he is the Todd Johnson of Youngstown, by the way. He is. They be like, Pastor Todd. Nah, that's not him. All right, y'all. Y'all know what time it is. It's time for the meme of the week. We're not going.
We're right there.
Because meme of the week. Meme of the week.
Welcome to Religiously Incorrect, ladies and gentlemen.
Meme of the week. Meme of the week.
Thank you. Send us your memes of the week.
Meme of the week. Meme of the week.
We are, these are all jokes. We are just playing.
Okay, so I like that intro, but I would much rather see a video of Jeff dancing.
Oh.
Because he knows all the moves.
Yeah, I'm going to do the prep the whole time. I'm going to do the prep and the running, man, the whole
Franklin.
time.
What's the meme of the week, Big Mike? What we got? After church Sunday naps. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. For all involved. If you're not slain in the spirit during the service, you will be after.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You will be after. And
Yes,
this is we had good church.
We had great church.
This is, matter of fact, if you're not laid out like that, you need to find a new church. I bet you Catholics don't lay out like that after church.
Oh, they be at the casino. I'm sorry, my Catholic friends. I'm sorry.
Whatever, the Baptists be there too.
They are mountaineer like a big
Why
dog.
you talking? It's a favorite parking space. Yeah, so here's the way COVID has messed us up, because we were already trying to do better on time. But that nap used to be like a 2:00 joint.
Right.
You get out of church, old school black church, 1:30, 2:00. You sleep, you the food is ready. You going. Grandma done pulled the stuff out the oven that she put in the night before. You kill it, you go to sleep. Now we get out of church at like 11:15, 11:30 for these earlier services.
Absolutely.
So now I'm like, it's like brunch. Like what in the, I'm not even hungry. The kids be crying and
you
stuff.
just ate breakfast.
Yeah, so I just go back to sleep.
1 hour ago.
And it's too early to, like, I can't be hyped up and then, that early in the day and then come down and be ready to eat. So, I'm still a big fan of after church naps. We definitely.
I love them.
Bro, that suit come off so quick.
Man, it'd be on the ground.
It'd be like
I don't even hang it up.
It's like Superman. Yes.
Drop it right where it's at.
If you think them preachers be looking clean in their suits, just check out their bedrooms 3 minutes after service is over. Them jokers, that $1,000 suit, mine is 2 for $300 or whatever. But they're laid out.
Then can I be honest? You like when your wife asks, can you zip me? Can you unzip me?
Bruh.
Hey, glory. Hey, how's
Listen,
okay.
That's a whole show. I'm like, can I send the kids to grandma's house first? Because don't they love that? And they do it. It's a tease, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tease.
Can you unzip? What am I supposed to do when I unzip you?
Bruh.
What am I supposed to do when I unzip you? And then you
walk away.
Got that girdle on and those waist strength.
See, I hope Tiffany's watching this. That's cold-blooded, man. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Hey.
I don't even know what that is.
I don't care. I like them all.
I don't know what that is. Right. Well, it's been wonderful being back. Good to have you back. You haven't lost a step, Pastor Jeff.
I ain't going to.
That's a wonderful thing. Everybody who is watching, like, share, comment, tag, tell your friends. It's political season right now.
Yes, sir.
It's midterms.
Yes,
and we
sir.
went through all this hollering and screaming about the Biden-Trump election and everything else. But we have a great guest, and we can't wait to share. She said, we literally cannot reach. That's hilarious. You're lying, Tiffany. You're just a tease. We have a great guest. So while we introduce our sponsors, I want to make sure that you take the next few minutes to like, to share, to comment. Matter of fact, I want every last one of you to tag somebody. To tap in and watch. Our sponsors for Religiously Incorrect come from the Phillips family of businesses. Phillips Care Cleaning Service. They do residential, commercial cleaning, floor cleaning, clean out, move in, maintenance. If you can dream it, they can do it. Call my brother Fernando at 330-219-7916. They serve Trumbull, Mahoning, and wherever they're paying money for work. And while you're at it, daylight savings time is upon us.
Yes.
Time to get on them yards. Check out Phillips Care Lawn Services. They've been in business for over a decade. I am a satisfied customer, by the way. They do a great job. So check them out. Leaf removal, mowing, trimming, edging, even like branches, trees, all that stuff. They take care of it. Check out Phillips Care LLC on Facebook or contact them at 330-219-7916, and they'll be happy to service you. And tell them Religiously Incorrect sent you, and you will not, I repeat, you will not get a discount.
And if you're in Ohio, it might still need some snow removal.
You need snow removal. You'll need more. Hey, if you want to be a sponsor of Religiously Incorrect, shoot us an email at religiouslyincorrectpodcast@gmail.com. We love to sponsor and highlight your business to our millions upon millions of viewers and listeners. CNN and Fox News are trying to catch up with us.
They trying.
It's never going to happen.
It ain't going to happen.
Tucker is trying to sign on with us.
Jim Rome. All of them.
I forgot he existed. Man, that's a blast from the past.
I love Jim Rome.
I did love Jim Rome, man.
Jim Rome.
Yeah, I'm surprised he ain't on Fox News. The crazy way he talks. Well, anyway, it's political season, Pastor Jeff. And I think that we need to pay attention to politics more when there's not a major presidential election.
Absolutely.
Than when there is. And to that end, we have a guest with us that is running for the United States Senate, representing the great state of Ohio.
OHIO.
The seat that will soon be vacated by Rob Portman, who I met. He actually visited our church once. Never called me back after that, but he came to our church once, took a picture 5 years ago.
He's been in Wheatland Tube a couple times.
He's been in Wheatland Tube a couple times, and his seat is up for grabs, and it's going to be filled by somebody. And we have one of the candidates with us today. I want you all to welcome Morgan Ware, candidate for U.S. Senate. Let's give it up for our guest today. Come on, Religiously Incorrect audience, hit the likes.
Morgan Harper.
How are you doing? Morgan Harper. I said Alec. Morgan Harper. I had you and your assistant mixed up. Not Morgan Ware. Okay. Morgan Harper.
I didn't even hear you.
I said the wrong name.
It's okay.
Okay, take her out. I'm going to introduce her again. Okay, we have Morgan Harper.
We got there. It's good.
And that goes to show how much I've been in communication with her team, which, by the way, you have an excellent team. They grind for you. They work for you. They do a great job. And you're doing a good job of getting your name out there. Running for U.S. Senate in the state of Ohio. We have a seat coming open, and this is a midterm election. This is the primary of the midterm election. And Morgan, what I'd like you to do is just tell us a little bit about yourself. I understand, you've been a graduate of, I want to pull my paper. I don't have it on here. You got to pull it up for me. We had notes. Sorry. There we go. Graduated from Tufts, Princeton, and Stanford, where you got your Juris Doctorate. And you're a lawyer. Mm-hmm. You're a lawyer. You work in the legal profession. You've been a profession. You've been a clerk with the U.S. District Court, and you've worked with the Federal Trade Commission. And you've done a lot of nonprofit work and advocacy work. And you're running for U.S. Senate. How about we start with this? Why are you running for the U.S. Senate?
It's a great question. So, I mean, where I always like to start is why I'm in politics in the first place, because a lot of people are like, why would anyone want to be in politics right now, especially federal politics? But for me, it's because, I got a fair shot. I was born in Columbus. That's where I am now. That's where I live, given up for adoption. I lived in a foster home when I was a baby and then was adopted and raised on the east side of Columbus. And my mom, my family, we went through a lot, but I knew we got through it because I had even one parent with a stable job and a strong community around us that put me in a position to get to places like Princeton and Stanford. And that's what I want for all of us, to be able to live out our potential all over the state of Ohio and guarantee opportunity. And I think that's what most of us in Ohio agree on. And I have a policy vision for how we get there, but it starts with having leadership that's unbought, unafraid, and is going to Washington to really deliver for us. And, and I saw firsthand how money has corrupted our politics there in U.S. Congress, and that's why I don't take corporate PAC money. And I think that, we need to start electing more people who have that vision. And right now we have a lot on the line, and that's why I want to be in the United States Senate representing us.
Can you expand on, because I've watched a couple of your debates and you've used that word unbought very, very harshly, not harshly, but you've used it quite a few times. And I just want you to talk to that about these politicians who are being bought, or that you feel are being bought.
It's not a feeling, it's a fact. You can see all this information publicly available that we have. Most people who are in Congress take a lot of money from corporate PACs, political action committees. And this was a financial mechanism to contribute to politicians that was created about 40 years ago or so. So it tracks pretty closely when our economy started to change quite a bit, that enabled corporations to contribute directly to politicians. And in my view, these are bribes, and this makes no sense. So compare that, for example, to when you're a federal regulator. So I worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, going after the banks after the foreclosure financial crisis. As a federal regulator, you are allowed, if you ever interact with anybody from business, from industry, to maybe get a gift that's no more than like $20, okay? Because it's very clear that influences your view if you start to get money from people when your job is to create effective policy. So how we got to the point of having our sitting elected officials that take this much money from corporations, well, it has a lot to do with lobbying that happened and was greenlit by the Reagan administration, a lot of conservative movement to try to capture our government to ensure that it doesn't do anything that has contributed to a lot of poor outcomes for us, health, financial, but then also this disillusionment that people have with politics generally.
I'm glad you mentioned that disillusionment, because it's palpable. It feels like you are either extremely passionate about a particular side, even if you don't fully understand everything, or you kind of just don't care and you're lethargic about it and apathetic about it. And it feels like the apathetic population is actually what is keeping us from checking these things. And where do you think that comes from? I've heard from people, I've seen the memes. It doesn't matter who's in office, doesn't matter what party is in office. It's the same game. It's almost like they're all on the same team, and our communities look the same, particularly in Black and urban communities. But you can go across the span of all communities and all demographics. They feel like, hey, they're all a part of the same team. It's almost like wrestling. Like right. It's a fake. Sorry, kids, it's fake, and adults that still think that. But what do you say to that disillusionment? How do we turn that around?
One, I say it's totally rational. We should all be pretty disillusioned with the state of what's going on in Washington. And we've had a generation of politicians, like I said, that have been bought and sold before we even get to the point of deciding what's going to be the best legislation. They say one thing when we're there, do another behind closed doors. So I think it's rational that people feel distrust. And in order to restore that, it's going to take having a different type of representation. So that's what I'm offering. What does that look like? One, like I said, not taking this money, so I will be free to actually just do what's right. Two, I'm also saying I'm self-imposing term limits, only serving 2 terms in the United States Senate, so that it's very clear it won't be about me. I'm not going to make a career out of it. And I'm grassroots. There's no powerful party person. I'm a Democrat, but there's no powerful Democrat in the state that was like, Morgan, it's your turn, it's your time. It's like, no, I'm looking around our communities all over the state, recognizing that we can't keep living like this. And I have a vision for how we can do better. And that's what it's going to take. The most common question that I get all over the state of Ohio, urban, rural, suburban, whatever, why can we trust you? Why are you different? And we need to have an authentic answer to that question to even imagine that as Democrats in our state, we're going to get the kind of turnout we need to be able to win this seat.
All right. Now, not only am I a pastor, I am also an organizer for ACTION, which is the Alliance for Congregational Transformation Influence in Our Neighborhoods.
That's a lot.
Yes. But one of the things that we are very concerned about is all the legislation that's out there, particularly pertaining to voter registration and the rights, particularly for our Black communities, as far as just the fact that they are trying to take away early voting,
absentee.
absentee voting, even the mail-in, where they was able to mail it back at one time where they can't do it now. There's also issues with redistricting that we really need to talk about if possible. And then there's also another piece that I was just made aware of, that peaceful protests, peaceful protesters and organizations now cannot or can be held accountable for riots that are started and things that, when oftentimes you have people sent in to engage in such acts as riots and things of that nature, which now we will be accountable for. So I know that's a lot, but if you could just talk to one or two of those things.
Yeah. I mean, all of these things are trying to limit our rights and freedom. And they're coming from a party that, and I'm like what it sounds like both of you are at. I'm critical of people all across the board and looking at everything with a clear head. But right now in the state of Ohio and increasingly nationally, we have a Republican Party, GOP, that says that they're about freedom, but is really about trying to restrict our rights and making sure that we don't have full participation when we're talking about the Black community in the political process. So that's some of the things that they're doing around the changes to voting. That's what it looks like when this redistricting, that they're just not following the law, that they're supposed to be drawing maps that are not partisan gerrymandered. That is the law. And they're just disregarding that. And also restricting people's ability to speak out, advocate, be able to publicly protest and all of that. This is all part of an assault on our rights to ensure that we do not have the full democracy that this country is supposed to stand for. And we should all be really concerned about that, because if we don't have a representative democracy, then we are not going to get the policies that majority of people in our state, in our country want. And we do have a real crisis on our hands, but that's only going to change when we have really mass mobilization. There's nobody's coming to save us here if that's not already clear. And we have to start really paying attention and pushing back on this.
So how do you feel is the best way to create that mass mobilization with this disillusionment? And you're running as a Democrat, and traditionally African Americans have been associated with the Democratic Party, but we've seen a lot of shifts in that. I have said it before and I'll say it again. If it weren't for the rise of the extreme right and more open racism, and I start with Sarah Palin all the time, and of course that trails through Trump, that I think a lot of African Americans would have abandoned the Democratic Party actively. I just think that. I think that, number one, there are some issues that African Americans tend to be conservative about on social issues, some certain social issues that don't jive with where the liberal wing is going. And then I think we even see some of the financial and economic policies. Sometimes, honestly, they do make a little more sense on the other side to some people, or at least they see balance between the perspectives. Mm-hmm. I think if it wasn't for all the hatefulness and the Confederate flags being flown at Trump rallies and Republican rallies, that people would have moved over. So how do we recapture that? And from your perspective as a Democrat, or do you feel it's time to move beyond that, and begin to see if there's not another way, even though third parties are next to impossible? Do we feel like we're just chained to this as our only guardrail against that side? Or can we really mobilize people to get excited again about a party that they feel has failed them?
I think we can, but it's, again, it's not because one individual is going to be the silver bullet here, right? And so that's where, I don't know if you can see the sweatshirt. So it's like Morganize is kind of the tagline.
I like that.
It's like a little play on my name, but it is really a call to action. It's like, we had that savior style politics. It didn't work. And so really what I want our campaign to be is a vehicle for general political participation, to mobilize everybody's network to really define what we are now going to say as a Democratic Party we stand for.
So can I push back real quick and say that for the Republicans, that savior approach did work. They got a savior, they got a figure, and it feels like even though they're not in a majority, they operate like they are. I mean, Trump is the de facto, second president of the United States, it feels like. Mm-hmm. And even just the behavior of Republicans is like, they do get behind that one figure. and they ride that. I mean, most of these Senate candidates and congressional candidates, their number one thing is I'm pro-Trump. That's like,
but why are they?
PA,
But why are
that's all
they
you
saying
see.
that, right? But okay, so yeah, there's an individual figure there, but there is a grassroots organized mobilization behind that, and that's why all of the people that are running on the Republican side of the Senate primary are speaking the gospel of Trump. It's because they want that activated grassroots mobilization, right? That on any given Tuesday is going to show up maybe 500, 1,000 people and hear from the likes of Josh Mandel. That's what they're after. That's why they're saying that they have to continue to try to court Trump's support. And so we have not had a counter to that in quite some time as Democrats in the state of Ohio. For a lot of people, the last time, and I know, I mean, it sounds like you all both, I know, are very politically engaged. It's like you knock on people's doors sometimes. They're like, wow, I haven't heard from anybody since the Obama era, right? I haven't really, when we're talking about people running for federal races. And so we need to activate that. I don't have a lot of faith based on what I've seen from, the statewide party to really deliver on that front. And I think that we can build it ourselves because we're already doing it. Because you're running, community organizations where you're activating the community on different topics. It's like, we got to pull that together and really start to set our own agenda for what we want the Democratic Party to stand for.
I would just even add on to, or piggyback off of what Pastor Todd said, and the fact that we believe that our savior or our first rise of the Black Democratic Party would be Obama. And I think when he didn't give us everything we wanted, such as Trump literally tried to give the Republican Party everything they wanted, that's when we began to turn our back even on somebody who was a hero, in my opinion. So I think, one of the things we have to do is understand that, he's even, and when we get into these offices, we are still not able to do everything that, we're able to, that we would like being done. So.
Yeah, well, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying that it just feels like they have that killer instinct to just ram and force through what they desire. And I think you've got Black men, macho men, who are starting to like Trump because they're like, yeah, that's the dude that'll just do what he wants. Right,
do what he wants.
And we thought that was a negative, and there are people like, yeah. And we thought it was just, some hateful, vengeful, racist person who liked that persona, only to find out that it was our buddies at the barbershop who liked it too. Mm-hmm. And like, how do we counter that, desire for that forceful, they don't want, let's go walk and knock on doors. They, many of them want somebody to just pull out a gun and start shooting, practically. You know what I mean? Just, euphemistically, just guns blazing.
Guns blazing, yeah. Yeah, no, and I am meeting those people all the time. And to an extent, I share the sentiment of, I want somebody that's going to be in there and really about what we're about, right? I mean, that's why I put my life on hold and I'm running for the Senate, because I just wasn't seeing it. And we don't have a lot of time. And so, yeah, no, I mean, for example, during this campaign, I met a younger guy who was telling me almost like a challenge that, I voted for the first time this last presidential election. It was my first time voting because I've been in and out of prison for my entire adult life. And I voted for Donald Trump. What do you think of that? And I was like, all right, why? I want to hear where are people at? And he was like, because he's a fighter and he doesn't care what anybody thinks. And he just does whatever he thinks is right. And I was like, all right, well, that sentiment, yeah, I'm with that to an extent, but we need to recognize that that isn't always translating into the best outcomes for us. And so I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I'm going to do what I believe is right, informed by a lot of what I think people are saying, and actually try to get it done. You know what I'm saying? And like actually understanding from a policy perspective what is necessary to make sure that we get to that vision of, we're not just surviving out here. We actually have an ability to live out our dreams. That's what I'm looking for. And I do think it starts with better leadership, that we demand, that we create the conditions to elect. And we have a lot of work to do on that front, but also not just electing people because they're Democrats, but really having an agenda that we're holding people accountable for.
You are running as a Democrat, also as a woman and as a Black woman. How How do you feel? Do you feel like there's still, even though, we have our vice president now, we have, even the movies, some of the greatest superheroes are now women, colored women as a matter of fact. But there's still a good old boys type of campaign that may try to hold you back in those areas?
Oh, yeah. I mean, within the Democratic Party. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's this sentiment that there's the chosen ones. The chosen ones end up looking pretty similar, over time, I would say. And but what's interesting and what we need people to understand is the chosen ones aren't winning. Okay. I mean, the golden boys aren't winning. So we can continue to run these people and try to brainwash people into thinking that this is the safe choice, but it's not working. Who is winning when we look at which Democrats have been able to win statewide in Ohio for federal seats or statewide at all? Melody Stewart. She's currently on our state Supreme Court, Black woman, okay? Performing pretty well even in rural counties, because that's usually what they like to tell you is like, oh, once you get into smaller counties, we can't have, diverse candidates running these places. Not true. Jennifer Brunner, also on the Supreme Court, woman, and Barack Obama, who we have discussed, who won Ohio twice. Now, the other person who has won statewide, Sherrod Brown. But as I lay out all the people who have won as Democrats, it starts to paint a picture that maybe Sherrod Brown is a little bit more of the anomaly than the rule about what it takes to win statewide right now in the current electorate in the state of Ohio.
And I think it's sad to think that there might even be a bit of a weariness or backlash because they feel like, okay, there are enough of them. And we think that that's only a Republican thing or a conservative thing, but Democrats can be racist too. They can be sexist too. And they can feel like we've given enough positions.
Well, we haven't in Ohio because we've never had a woman or a Black person as a senator. So
I agree.
Even if you have a quota mentality, the quota has not been met.
I understand, but sometimes I feel like there is a backlash against, okay, we've had a Black president, we have a Black vice president, Black female, so we don't feel obligated. We do feel comfortable pushing back to that, good old boys network, that traditional, white male image. And as much as we say it should not be about the image, I think that the image does matter, but the ideas matter more. And I'm looking to see what the ideas are and even what outreach is. Because I'll be honest, the old line in the Black church is that even especially Democratic candidates or office holders, they don't come our way until they're looking for a vote at campaign time. I had a experience with our Democratic congressman who's running for Senate. And the first time I met with him was after I had publicly called him out at a rally over a shooting that he never addressed publicly of a Black man in Niles, Ohio. And that got his attention first angrily and then a meeting. But I did mention to him, no joke, I said, Rob Portman somehow made it to my church. And I'm sure there was a purpose for that, but you never did, and I think Black people are tired of that. We're tired of being pandered to at election time and not talked to and heard from in between. And so how do you feel about being an engaged senator and an engaged representative of the people between elections? What are your ideas and commitments to making that a reality?
Yeah. Well, first, I completely agree. I think there has been that mindset and people rest on their laurels because they just assume that we're going to support. And more than anything, that also feeds into this idea that somehow politics is just transactional. And I'm trying to redefine what politics can be, that it is actually advancing all the work that's happening at the community level, not just trying to co-opt it or take advantage of it. And so, after I previously ran for office a couple of years ago and started an organization after called Columbus Stand Up that was focused on pandemic relief. So, working with our volunteer base, working with other community organizations, we distributed 30,000 masks throughout Franklin County before there was a federal plan. We started a ride share program, get people to the polls to vote, get to them vaccine appointments, all of that, because I don't want to just be, I'm here, I'm there just for election time. I want to be like constantly engaging to both overcome that disillusionment, but to show people this is what service looks like. This should be our expectation of our leadership. And similarly, as a U.S. senator, that continues, but you just have more resources to do it. There are actually fewer reasons why you shouldn't be doing that, because you have a budget to be able to perform constituent services. Now, that can just look like having an office, expecting and waiting for people to reach out to you, and then, very reactive. Or it could look like being very proactive, being out there, hosting town halls, letting people know what's going on in Washington with voting rights. What are the barriers? Why we can't get that done? So we're not learning in the media about, oh, now it's the filibuster. It's like, no, you have a senator that is breaking things down and also providing resources and eliminating the barriers to access those resources. Another example, small business owners. I've heard from a lot of small business owners around the state, especially Black small business owners. It's like, these resources, they say they're going to be available, but then there are all these barriers, bureaucracy to be able to get there, or there's discrimination when you try to access them. So that's something that we as a Senate office should be helping to address, and not forcing each individual to have to reinvent the wheel and try to figure it out, just laying out what the process is and making it streamlined. I mean, that's my vision. I want to be very engaged. It's just like how we campaign, exactly how we should be governing.
Gotcha.
I want to bring this up, and I'm trying to bring it up in the right way. But
bring it up wrong. Just bring it up in the wrong way.
Our current president said in his speech that we don't need to defund the police, but we need to fund them more and give. And I think the way he said it, I do agree that they need more training.
He said more bullets. They need more.
He talked about more training and better training. I just would like to ask you, what is your opinion on this whole defund the police debate?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really like that framing, because that framing to me is giving into this like far right manipulation and talking points. Is like, we need to identify what we believe in, why we believe in it, and what's the policy to do something about it, right? And so for me, it cannot be denied that we have had incidents of people who are paid to protect the public and ensure public safety that have resulted in the loss of lives. And the people who have done that have, in certain instances, been at fault. Even a lot of people working within law enforcement agree that that is occurring. And we as a community all over the state don't want that. That is not the goal of what public safety is supposed to be. So we need to make sure that we're enacting policies that prevent that and bring accountability when it occurs. That's why I support ending qualified immunity, for example, which, that's been
Absolutely.
A frustration of mine over the first year or so, is that somehow that just, got removed from the conversation, that, oh no, we can't, that's too controversial, we got to get that out of the policing act. It's like, no, this is not controversial. This makes sense. There are laws. The laws apply equally when they are violated to whoever is violating them. Period. Most people I meet, including, again, many law enforcement officers, agree with that position.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you said that about qualified immunity and it being a divisive issue, because I've watched legislation get watered down, neutered, sometimes completely thrown off the table over that word. Well, it's too divisive. It's too divisive of an issue. And I'm like, the conditions that created these needs for legislation are divisive. There's never been legislation, and especially groundbreaking laws passed, policy shifts that weren't divisive. The civil rights movement was divisive. Ending slavery was divisive. And it's almost like we've adopted this idea that it's not worth the fight. It's not worth the fight. Take what you can get. I almost feel like I'm watching people who would have agreed to the 3/5 compromise all over again if that's what it took to keep the country together. Absolutely. And to keep each other at the table. And I'm like, so I do believe compromise. I do believe that there are more middle of the road, moderate Americans than want to admit it. I think they're the real silent majority, or the new silent majority, whatever the old silent majority was of the religious right of the 80s and and all that. But I believe like we give up too much. And again, it goes back to that killer instinct, which just leads me to this question, if you want to touch on that. But running for senator, we had all this excitement over Raphael Warnock and the other gentleman from Georgia who won. And we felt like the Senate's there. Yeah, Ossoff and all of that. But then you have a Democrat who seems to side with Republicans more. So it feels like the Democrats don't have the majority. And it feels like the more that we feel like we're getting to that place, it doesn't make a difference if we get one or two, because there are always going to be a few who will not take that fighting stance, or who will be on the other side altogether on too many issues, like Joe mentioned. And so how do you feel you can make a difference, or is it still dependent upon other people winning their races too and getting a clear majority? And then does it turn into a filibuster? You're never going to get 60 votes. And that, so almost, I think that's, again, a part of the disillusionment of, okay, what difference does it really make if they can still override the majority process? And so I just want you to unpack some of that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, you've hit on a really critical point in that in the Senate, you have to have coalitions that are passing legislation to actually implement policy, right? And a huge barrier to that has been the sacrifices, I would say, that the Democratic Party has been willing to make to have a bigger coalition. But it's not winning. Okay, yeah, so maybe we've gotten some people in seats, but if we're defining winning, not as individuals getting to the United States Senate, but resources getting to our community because of legislation being passed, we are not winning. So that's where we need to redefine what does winning look like, and who are the types of people that we're going to be electing to make that, to engage in that fight. And there are no guarantees of any change immediately, but I do support getting rid of the filibuster, for example, so that we can have a higher chance of success. But we in Ohio, everybody who's listening, we need to start recognizing that Democrat is not enough. It is not enough. What kind of Democrat are we electing? So take, for example, one of the barriers to passing legislation right now in the United States Senate, Joe Manchin. My opponent in this Democratic primary, your congressman, rants a lot on social media about wanting to stand up to him, but then takes money from his PAC. Do we think that a person who's taking money from somebody is going to actually be the person that's going to really stand up and engage in that fight? Any fight? No. Lip service, flip-flop, politics, politicians. This is what we have come to deal with. But my message is we can totally redefine that by electing different types of Democrats.
Wow. So answer this question, because I'm glad you made that phrase. What type of Democrat are you? Where do you fall on the spectrum? We have this far liberal, far left, the squad. We got the squad, and I don't know if you're looking to join the squad or if you're one of the more moderate type persons, and I know issues can be all over the place, but if people were to describe you based on the policies you believe in, where would you fall? What type of Democrat would you call yourself, and maybe even answer what others might call you?
I mean, for sure, based on the labels that get put on people would label me a progressive Democrat. But What's interesting about that, and this is where, I love to go to data, most Democratic primary voters, for example, so let's take a policy that gets labeled as a progressive policy, Medicare for all, universal health care. I believe that everybody in our state, in our country, should have access to the healthcare they need, including mental health care. That is a policy. You can put whatever label on it that you want, but it does get labeled as a progressive policy. And it turns out that over 80% of people who tend to vote Democratic in our state agree with me. Now, you don't hear the media talk about that. They talk about it as this crazy idea that somehow we would turn into Canada, a place where you don't hear about people that can't afford to go to the doctor at all, or that don't get access to the medicine they need, right? So we need to get back to reality. And I support policies that are going to ensure everybody gets a chance to live out their potential. Healthcare, making sure people have housing, making sure if you want to start a business, you have the resources and education to be able to do that. And if you're a worker, that you're not going to get exploited, that you actually will get paid to keep up with the cost of living and entitled to the work that you're doing. You can call that whatever you want. I call that my understanding of what the American dream is supposed to be. And that's what I'm willing to fight for in the United States Senate.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Well, I don't know if this is more of a question or just a comment. I watched your debate with Joe and Josh. I keep on calling him Joe.
Just call him Joe. He's that unimportant.
Yeah, he really ain't that important. But one of the things, he kept on calling you angry. And you made the statement, I want to say it right. You said, how come every time a Black woman who is knowledgeable and educated stands up for herself, you want to call them angry? And I just commend you for that, because I think you are educated. I think you know what you're talking about. And I think it outranks his tantrum and his thoughts on Trump and his, innuendos about Trump. So I just want to commend you on the fact that you have educated yourself in these areas, and you are doing what needs to be done to get us to where we need to be.
Thank you.
That's slander. that's slander to me because, we've always, I've been in that, place. And I think, as we all know, the only lower viewed person in the world than a black man is a black woman.
Absolutely.
And, I know what it's like to be told in a boardroom, like you're raising your voice. And I'm like, no, I'm just making an emphatic point. You're just used to not hearing someone speak intelligently and emphatically to the point, not becoming quickly subservient. And that's been thrown at you. That's been thrown at Shirley Chisholm. When you said unbought, I mean, that just put the antennas up, and others that Kamala Harris, and even, Hillary Clinton, even white women, that if you speak up in anything, you're shrill, you're angry, you're bitter, you're resentful, and all that stuff. And God knows what other innuendos go behind those types of things, the words that get said. And I appreciate that that's a fight that even males who are black don't have to deal with so much. But I appreciate the fact that you deal with that so graciously. So, speaking of your opponent on the Republican side, he's really trollish. He's really trollish in his, it's obvious that he's like, the Tucker Carlson, let's just push the envelope, say crazy things. I mean, how do you run against a person? Like you said, it's a game. It's almost like a game of one-upmanship, a game of who can just get any attention, no matter whether it's true, false, or whatever. Do you find it difficult? Like, I watch Hillary struggle against Trump. Like, how do you debate a person who is not even talking about real things?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're not even actually talking about real things. You're just throwing these crazy darts out there to throw red meat. Mm-hmm. And even try to get you off track of thinking, how is it like?
He said the insurrection isn't the right word. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
It was a carnival.
You just call it out directly. And I mean, we debated twice, Josh Mandel and I, once in Columbus, once in Cleveland. And, especially I would say in the first one, it's like calling this stuff out directly. It's like they're contradictory. There are no ideas here. You say you're for law enforcement, but then you're going to make fun of an event that resulted in the loss of lives of law enforcement, January 6th, and try to totally write that off. You say that you're for freedom, but then you won't support the ability for people to be able to make their own decisions. You say that you're going to Arizona, like we said in the second debate, and investigating alleged voter fraud. It's like, who in Ohio asked you to do that? Nobody, right? It's like, let's just take everything that they are saying, unpack how it is ridiculous, and then we've got to pivot to, and what are our ideas, and expose them. I mean, he said in both debates, oh, I'm really concerned about veterans who are homeless. The Democrats have created this situation. Veterans who are living under bridges and homeless. It's like, oh, really? Okay, well, you care so much about that. You've been in politics for 20 years. What have you done about it? Name one housing policy. I don't see any on your website that's going to improve the lives of any veteran or anybody else who's struggling to find housing. And they have nothing to say. Now, the danger for us in this election is that they would have an opponent who is like them. It is a game for career politician, been around forever, nothing getting done, nothing changing, right? That's who they're used to running against. And that's what they're going to try to throw those talking points at and just say, oh, you're just part of the problem. You're making this money. You take all this money too. We're all the same. But what they have no idea what to do with is somebody who is a very strong contrast to what they're saying. Not a career politician. I'm not like you. You can they have to go to the gutter with all this racist, sexist vitriol, and they have nothing else to show for it. And I think the majority of people in Ohio are over it, but we have to present an alternative that people really can buy into, not just another politician. Wow.
I definitely appreciate the answer. I see a lot of statistics about, like you mentioned, that 80% of the Democrats in particular agree with Medicare for all and, universal health care. And then we'll see statistics that cross party lines that seem to support certain policies that might be promoted more so by Democrats, like the Build Back Better Act or what have you, But it feels like when push comes to shove, people jump back to their teams when it comes time to vote and not their principles. Mm-hmm. And like politics feels more like like a team. Like, I mean, you know how we get when we're watching football and we're tweeting back and forth at each other, and we don't even care about who's really better. Like the Steelers really could be the worst team this year, and the Browns could be better. But I'm not going to tell you that you guys are better. I'm not giving Faker Mayfield, excuse me, any clout. But I mean, do you feel like there's a barrier of that sort of that tribalism that actually gets in the way of principles claim they stand for? And by the way, we've seen that some of the people who vote for policies are actually voting against their own interests. Like some of these things in Appalachia, in impoverished counties and places like Alabama and Mississippi and other areas in the South and in the West, they're voting against their own interests, but they're voting with their team. They're voting with their tribe. So how do we overcome tribalism like that? And is it possible? Or do we have to just try to build a bigger tribe than the other side?
Great question. I mean, in the short term, we need to build a bigger tribe than the other side, to be frank, because, some of that is persuasion. Persuasion takes time. And I do think that the numbers are there for us to just run up as many people who are not, completely corrupted, I would say, by a lot of the views that Trump puts out there, and a lot of the people who are running on the Republican side of this race, who do believe in just trying to get those policies in that are going to make life a little bit easier for most people. Find those people everywhere. That's our challenge in this 2022 election. But moving forward, I mean, absolutely. I think there's a lot of room to convert people to the ideas. So, I gave the stat around Democratic primary voters, but I talked to a lot of people who identify as conservative that are also like, yeah, it's crazy that big pharma, big insurance just gets to dictate all the costs of things. This doesn't make any sense. I don't like the fact that, we have monopolies that are dominating every sector of the economy and somehow are going to tell us that we just have to accept this wage and deal with it. Kroger, let's throw out. I'm going to start naming some names. Let's throw these names out. It's like, there are a lot of people that are fed up with the economic status quo. That is one of the things that the Republican Party is exploiting. And we have I believe, a majority of people in our state that, if presented with the right alternative, would buy into a different vision. A lot of people in Ohio identify as independents, don't like either party. So that's a huge opportunity. That's one of the reasons why we've been considered a bellwether, but it's just most of those independents have been going more to the right than ever voting for a Democrat in recent history right now.
Wow.
Well, we got a few minutes left, and I want to give a chance for the audience. If you guys have any questions for Morgan right now, please post them right now.
Yes.
Don't take your time. Post them right now. Just one quick question, and I don't know how you feel about this. Just want to ask you about immigrant reform, and I know that's something that's near and dear to my heart. What's going on with immigration reform, and many who are not being allowed over, and matter of fact being kicked back. So, what is your take on immigrant reform?
Yeah, well, my mom actually immigrated to Ohio from Trinidad. I can't remember if I mentioned that in the intro, and so. Having one parent who is an immigrant, I definitely want us to continue to be a place that is welcoming to immigrants and all immigrants, and we're not prioritizing certain countries over others based on people's place of origin. And in order to do that, I mean, we have to have comprehensive immigration reform and ensure that we have pathways to citizenship so that we can continue to be a place that is welcoming to those that, aren't able to access opportunity in the places where they're coming from. But, I will say, and this comes up a lot in talking to people, I don't think that needs to be at all to the detriment of making sure that we have opportunities for people who are already here. And sometimes, especially in the media, like to present it as this either or and try to turn us against each other. And it's all pretend. I mean, it really does not have to be like that. We have had periods in history where we had a better management of these things, and we need to get past that media narrative and make sure that people understand, what's really going on.
So you're not trying to build the wall?
No, the wall is a waste of money.
My 12-year-old has a bucket full of Legos. My 12-year-old's got a lot of Legos that we're not using right now.
Yeah.
So I was going to contribute those.
Not trying to build the wall.
I was going to contribute those. I have a question. It's religiously incorrect. We haven't talked a lot about religion, but as I mentioned earlier, politicians are known for stopping by. And you're welcome. By the way, I think you're going to come by. And you're going to come by and see us, and you're welcome to come by. You can slide by Pastor Jeff because we get done before him. We just have different staggered times. But the Black church has always been the center of connection for politicians, policymakers, kind of like the barometers of the Black community in a lot of ways. Now, one thing we've wrestled with in this new generation is that we are not necessarily the singular voice anymore for the Black community. I mean, that idea of one Black leader, and honestly, I think we've been chasing it since Dr. King, like trying to make somebody the next Dr. King or Black leader, and even in every city, even in every community. You go to this big church, he's the guy, he's the mover shaker. You know, to a degree that might still exist, but there is a lot more diversity in thought openly nowadays. There hasn't been anything to replace the Black, church as that place. But that religious Christian values, whatever you want to call it, still dictates a lot of people's thoughts. And here is the rub that's religiously incorrect. A lot of Black Christians and Black people in general who follow any semblance of Christian or conservative values socially balk at the LGBTQ platform that feels aggressively pushed by the Democratic Party, and feel a little embittered that they feel like the Black agenda has been displaced by gains. And we know it doesn't have to be either or. We know it shouldn't be a competition, but that doesn't track necessarily. They see legislation. They see what happened under the Obama administration. And that was a part of what Jeff said of not getting what we want. We saw other people seemingly get what they want, as if we have no civil rights laws on the books, at all, and maybe distance creates that issue where our laws are 50 years old and theirs are 5 years old. But how do you address that? How do you connect with people? I don't know if you are a person of faith and very strong conviction, but I've run into a lot of people who are like, that's a step too far. I am not a hater. I'm not a hateful person. I actually believe in rights. I actually want people to have civil rights, but it feels like it's become too much of a focus. It feels like it's become too much of a go-to. And now we're asked to jump on board with a team that we don't agree with all that platform. And that part of the platform just seems to get all the attention. How do you speak to that? Because as pastors, we're betwixt and in between. A lot of our members have gone straying. And like I said, they would have strayed even more if there wasn't so much hatefulness on the other side. And that's a big part of it. Big part of it.
I'm so glad you asked.
And so how do you address that?
Well, and so follow-up question, because I think you've identified two reasons perhaps for the strain. So do you think it's more discomfort with that community, or that community feeling like that community has been prioritized over the Black community?
I think it's number one, personal conviction, religious conviction. It is still a value. I'm watching people who reject Christianity actually hold tighter to anti-LGBTQ views. My woke brothers, my hoteps we joke about, they're like really pushing. There's a gay agenda. Well, every time you show up, turn on the TV, they're pushing it on our kids. And then you got church mama. You got that older brother who grew up in a different era. And you got younger people who are like, no, I really am considering myself an ally. Sometimes I'm frustrated I'm not being told I'm an ally enough, like it's never enough. Yeah. But I think it starts with conviction. But then it also starts with what feels like displacement. So let's start with the religious conviction. Right. How about that? Because honestly, they feel like, and I just want to throw this out there, the Republicans are catering to their side's religious convictions. And then you can be the biggest sinner in the world, but you're going to jump in there and say, Jesus, Jesus. But we feel like the Democrats are being said, nah, you got to come over here with us. So start with the religious part. How do we interact and engage with people who vehemently disagree because of their personal convictions with the stance? Yeah.
Well, it was funny, the meme that y'all had earlier. I was raised in the Catholic Church and can attest, much more efficient services. But no, I start with empathy with all of this. And I do want people to feel that they have the ability to have their own personal opinions and to be open with me about what they are just uncomfortable about. And I certainly have had those interactions with people in our community about this topic. But my response is usually, okay, it's okay to feel uncomfortable about that, but we also need to recognize that if we start creating gateways to allow discrimination on that front, it is a slippery slope to then start peeling back all sorts of rights and protections for everyone, including us, right? As a Black community, even, if you don't identify as LGBTQ plus or whatever, this stuff is all connected. And so, I think we are best served by, hey, we let people be themselves, freedom, and we need to focus on the things that do unite us. But I don't think that it's worth spending a lot of energy trying to persuade people around their convictions. I mean, convictions are what they are, but honoring that, hearing that, but then trying to also move towards, well, what are the things that unite us? And I mean, that has been the instruction of the faith that I've experienced is we're about service. We are about community building and not about ostracizing people, accepting people and taking them for who they are and where they're at. That's my faith. So, I mean, that's how I would talk about the first bucket that you addressed. Now, the second one, I think people have some of this either or mentality because we haven't seen enough gains for our community and feeling like
the scarcity.
And that is real. We haven't seen enough gains for our community, right? And so, I mean, that's part of the reason why I do support and have talked pretty openly about having conversations around things like systemic reparations. I mean, we need to be talking about the fact that we have a large wealth gap, that there have been federal policies that have discriminated against the Black community specifically. And when there's a harm, then we need to right that harm. And then we need to have broad conversations about what that might look like. And we can have a broad discussion about that, right? But I don't disagree with the analysis that we haven't seen enough gains. The data bears that out. We have a huge wealth gap. That is just fact. That if you look around most neighborhoods that are considered historically Black neighborhoods in our state, if they have not already been completely gentrified, they are not necessarily in a great place, right? So that's real. That it is harder in a lot of cases to access the capital to be able to start businesses and grow businesses and compete. Now, some of those reasons relate to universal reasons around failed economic policy at the federal level, but trends are what they are, and we need to be honest about that. So I see those as two very different things, different responses on both of those. But in the latter one that I just talked about, that's a challenge for us, though, to be better organized, to hold people accountable that we're electing, and to make sure that things are implemented. And if they aren't, then we need to be honest about that and maybe start to take different actions from electoral perspective about how we're voting.
Okay. I'm killing it. Anything else you want to share with us, Jeff?
It was just phenomenal.
Yeah. Big Mike's going to pop in with a comment.
Actually, I have two questions for you, Morgan. First, where can I get one of those hoodies? I like that.
The Morganized.
So I don't know if y'all are aware of Morganized Against the World. So that's a Cincinnati brand that we did a collaboration with Floyd from Ohio. He's on Instagram. And so these are available on our website, morganharper.org, and all other information about the campaign also available there. And so, yeah, check them out. We have other merch that's on there as well. But yeah, Morganized.
Cool.
They're very good hoodies. So
all right, cool.
Can confirm.
Next question. There's a lot of memes, a lot of opinions going on about the gas prices. Break down what's really going on with the gas prices, so people really know what's going on. So that all the misinformation.
It's Obama's fault. It's Obama's fault. That's the issue.
People love to blame Obama for everything. So first, okay, here's a point that I want to make sure everybody realizes. The reason why we continue to find ourselves so dependent on gas in the first place is because fossil fuel companies in the 70s knew that climate crisis was coming, knew that we should be moving to renewable energy. And instead of deciding to invest in that and do something about it, they decided that they were going to start a misinformation campaign that then was propelled by the Republican Party trying to make people think that climate change isn't real, which we are still dealing with, okay? And bribing politicians to not implement more effective clean energy policy that would have put us in a better position as a country and have more diversity of renewable energy sources. So that's the first thing. We could be in a stronger position overall, both addressing the climate crisis and also investing in renewable energy if we had started to do what we could have been doing since the 1970s, but fossil fuel companies didn't want us to do. So now where do we find ourselves? Well, we find ourselves with fossil fuel companies like ExxonMobil that have all of the power over our oil, our energy supply. They are a monopoly. they are a monopoly because they bribe politicians to be able to preserve their market power. And now they are also driving up the prices of supply. Why? Because when you're a monopoly, you can do whatever you want without any repercussions, because our government hasn't stepped in and actually checked their power and held them accountable. So in my
So you
view,
want communism? That's what you're saying?
No, I want a free market that's actually free. We don't live in a free market right now. We live in a monopolistic market that is dominated by very large corporations in every sector that make it virtually impossible for any small or medium-sized business to compete. That is not a free market. And especially when it comes to things as crucial as gas, being able to fill up your tank, all of that, it is criminal that we have allowed these companies to just get away with controlling our lives in this way. So there's the ability for the federal government to check that. It needs to be happening across all sectors, but that is what's going on with the gas prices. And that's been going on for some time, just the vulnerable position we're in. And there are things that could be done at the federal level to stop it.
I appreciate that thorough answer. And I think we have short memories that, gas prices have been high before and fluctuated and will continue to rise. As we leave, I just want to ask one general question. What is your plan to engage the religious community and the faith community and churches, both as a candidate and if it comes to this, as a senator, as a sitting senator? When? I'm supposed to be impartial, kind of, sort of.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, so what's your plan as a senator, but even as a candidate, to engage the religious community, and particularly the Black religious community, and maybe tell us a little bit about what you have done? You can name drop if you want, nothing wrong with that. Name drop if there are people that you're in close affiliation with, or because everybody else does it. I always, as soon as some politician comes to our church, our picture ends up on Instagram and that they were at a Black church this week.
That's
so
funny.
you know how that goes. So I'm cool with it. I'm all right. So what's your plan?
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty similarly to just regular life. I mean, being able to go to churches, connect with leaders, community leaders, including the faith community. I've been going to a lot of churches over the last few years, just building those relationships, mostly before launching this campaign, I'll be honest with you, in Columbus, not so much statewide, but, had the opportunity up in your area to go to Pastor Simon's church and walk in one of the Stop the Violence marches. So that was great. We was able to meet a lot of people that way. And like I said, I mean, to me, there really shouldn't feel like there's a lot of difference between when someone's campaigning and once they've won and are governing. Mm-hmm. The relationship building should continue. The presence should continue. And I really enjoy it because, I mean, I've found that each pastor has a really different perspective and style, and then the congregations are different. And so being able to continue to move around and engage and visit different congregations, I think is necessary to then know where the people are at, because the pastors are, I mean, you all know better than I do, of course, but you're reflecting the streets. I mean, where the people are. And, for example, this morning I was at a church and here in Columbus, Pastor Troy, New Salem, I don't know if you've ever heard of that one. And
oh yeah, very well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. His family was here in Warren for years.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we know New Salem really well.
Perfect. And I mean, Pastor Troy's sermon was all about, just like when I was at Pastor Simon's church, violence. And I mean, the amount of young lives being lost in the Linden area where his church is, and really a call to action. We've got to do something. We can't live like this. I mean, that to me was affirmation that what I'm feeling is the priority from a political perspective aligns with what lots of people are feeling, because I know that he's where his community is at and he's reflecting the pulse of the streets. And so, I don't know any other way but continue to stay very much connected to folks who are on the ground at the community level. And I think part of the reason why we've seen Washington get so disconnected is folks get elected and then they end up spending more time there than really back home. And then you lose touch. So we got to keep the grassroots perspective all throughout.
I appreciate it.
Very much.
Yeah.
I think you've done a phenomenal job. We are so thankful and grateful, and we are definitely going to keep our eye on you, continue to watch what's going on with you. And, hopefully, like we said, come on through Warren, Ohio,
sure.
Stop by both of our churches and we'll make sure we
nobody else's. Don't go to anybody else's.
Nobody
church.
else. Nobody else matters.
Nobody.
Okay. It's not a competition.
People around here.
No, I'm looking forward to it, really. So I look forward to seeing
we
y'all.
love it. Everybody give it up for Morgan Harper, candidate for U.S. Senate, Democrat representing the state of Ohio. She wants to be your senator. There are only 2 senators in the state of Ohio. There are only 2 senators from every state. And so you're talking about a very powerful position. There's only 100 senators in the entire country. So you're talking about a person who can make some moves. Anything you want to say, Morgan?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, last thing. May 3rd is the election day. So we have about 50 days to go. If anyone also wants to volunteer and be part of the campaign, sign up, morganharper.org. We need you. We're building a movement all over the state, and there are a lot of different ways to plug in. So if you have any time or bandwidth or interest over the next 50 days, we're ready to make history. So we want anybody to be a part of that.
Love it, love it. You're more than welcome to advertise on the podcast. We'll throw it out there. You could use
Black
this footage.
media.
We don't have any rights to anything. We don't have any rights to anything. But we're really grateful. Everybody, give it up for Morgan. You know what I love? You can say her name both ways, and it makes sense. Morgan Harper, Harper Morgan. I don't know which one's the cooler name. Morgan Harper. You can run next time as Harper Morgan and see if you know.
I get called Harper a lot.
I'm sure. No, it's great, intelligent, passionate. You have good ideas. And I would say that to anybody, regardless of party or, affiliation. You have good ideas, direct answers. Keep that track going. I'll keep trolling Mandel on Twitter. Maybe we'll get him on here. See if we could beat up on him a little bit.
We love to.
That would be
wonderful.
So much fun. That'd be fun. But we'd probably get, get arrested. We get arrested on the way
Y'all
out of the
host a
studio.
debate. Host a debate.
Yeah, it'd be great. That'd be so. Which, by the way, so are the other candidates really engaging in the debates, or is it just you and Josh at this point?
So I've been asking that Tim Ryan debate me since October, shortly after I launched the campaign. He has not taken me up on that, even though we've had a couple other local TV stations that were willing to host one and candidate forums that were available. So that's disappointing. That's an individualistic mindset. That's not about making sure that as many people are engaged in the political process as possible. So that's a problem for me. We are going to have the one confirmed, I believe, at the end of the month, March 28th at Central State. And tickets are available for that. So the Ohio Debate Commission is hosting that. People can come in person, but it also will be shown on Spectrum News. So
he has agreed to that debate.
He has agreed to that one. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be looking for that.
Definitely.
We'll be looking for that. Well, thank you guys all so very much. I want to shout out our last sponsor, which still comes from the Phillips Care family of businesses because they love us so much. But Brother Mike runs Phillips Care Fitness. They are the new owners of High Street Fitness, Phillips Care Training, the new owners of High Street Fitness in Cortland on High Street. Check them out. Mike Phillips, he's going to murder you,
get your body
but you're
right.
going to be fit.
Yes, sir.
So go ahead and get started on your summer body. We tried to get you ready for Christmas and the holidays and the new year.
Didn't work.
It didn't work. So you have another go round, maybe after you get done shoving down all that Easter candy, you can get started on your summer bodies. Check out High Street Fitness, Phillips Care Training. They're online. He works for kids. He get his little boy be doing like one-handed push-ups.
Maybe
like
you can
Rocky.
Really get into that skinny suit that you want to wear for Easter. That you gonna look awkward.
Yeah, listen. Yeah, get right before you try to wear that Easter dress, Easter suit. Make sure you get the body right and tight. But thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to Big Mike, and thank you, Morgan, for being with us and your team for making sure we made this connection. Shout out to Allison and Nancy and everybody else on your team. And if you're running for office and you want to come and make your platform known, come on, let us beat up on you. We'd be happy to ask you questions, and we won't accept anything less than the direct answers. So check us out every Sunday night service, 8 p.m., Religiously Incorrect. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. Until next time, God be with you. Peace out.